top of the key, shot blocked by Gobert, who picks it up, dribbles the length of the court, and hammers with the left hand. Rudy with the block on one side and goes three-quarter court, leading the 7'2" fast break and rocked the rim. It is tip-off today, finding old highlights. I love Ron Boone laughing behind that one. We'll check in on that. I don't know what we'll do today. I don't have a ton of stuff. Just hang out, have a cup of coffee, say good morning. It is tip-off. Bop, 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 bop. Pow! How are you? Today really is just a hello, good morning. I have been working on a project since 6:30 this morning, finalizing it, and have not had a lot of time to prep. So, honestly, I don't have a ton for you. If you have a lot of other things that are really important, you should go do something else, is what I'm telling you. Oh, I can see this was my trophy I won yesterday. That's from my daughter for my birthday. That will stay there. It's more important than anything else. I shouldn't tell this story, but this is so good. Yesterday was my birthday. Thank you for all the well wishes and those who posted nice comments as my birthday present on iTunes or Stitcher. I greatly appreciate that. If you didn't and you have a chance, it makes a big difference. So I'm talking to my mom last night, and she's like, what are you doing this week? And my daughter is 9 and a huge golfer, and her birthday present to me is that we're golfing all week. That's she and I are going out and doing things. So we played 18 at Wing Point on Monday. She shot a 101, by the way. She's 9. Yesterday we played Soldier Hollow. That wasn't as good a luck. It was a little harder. We played 9 and then went home. Today we're not. And then Thursday we're playing with Ron. Boom. And so I tell her this, and she says, well, don't you, is that all you do? You just do sports? I was like, sure. Why wouldn't I? She's on vacation. I'm basically am this week. Why not? Well, wouldn't you think you should be taking some classes, or maybe doing some things, or there's some classes you could take? I mean, I'm 44 years old, and my mother is asking me to take classes. She thinks maybe I should get a job, I guess, that's real, and take some more, maybe I should take some. She said, well, I mean, you could do some more stats or some other things or economics or... Yep, maybe I should take some more classes. So the Executive MBA program, University of Utah, here I come. That's what I'll do. Get it ready for me. All right, there's a bunch of little news in the NBA, but actually probably big news. The Ballmer deal's done with the Clippers, means they really move forward, have endless amounts of money. Doc Rivers, I think, solidifies there. It's the LA landscape's going to be really interesting because the Clippers are going to become the primary team here for the next 5 or 6 years. Till Chris Paul's knees fall apart, they're the best team in LA. The Lakers are a long way away, and I think there's going to be a day here where I'm not sure how it's going to quite happen, but I think it's going to come down to there's going to be a free agent that chooses the Clippers over the Lakers here pretty soon. Now, the Lakers are going to have more money, so I'm not sure how it's going to happen. It's not going to be Durant or someone like that, but it's going to be pretty interesting. The Ballmer deal is a big deal. Ballmer's a likable, energetic guy who has buttloads of money. I mean, billions. And, again, another one where it's hard for the Millers, I think. Interesting article about what the Jazz might be worth, but you also just have to have the capital available. And some of these new owners just have excessive capital available. I mean, the depths, we're in the 0.00 of the 1% of America. We're talking about NBA owners, and the depth of wealth there and range is still pretty wide-ranging. Interesting piece done. I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk about something like this. Hopefully not. I don't get in trouble for this. I love player rating systems, just not because they're all right, but because somebody took the time to spend a lot of work on something and try to put together a system and see and rank players, and sometimes they come out right, and sometimes they come out wrong. And I've got my Locke offensive ranking, which is solely based on offensive players. And there's been some work done. I'm going to leave some names out here because I don't want to hurt anyone. I'm going to leave some names out, but I'm just going to give you. This is the top 10 players, top bottom players of a list that is being put together, being worked on right now. I'm sure it's being tweaked a little bit, but there's been a big paper published on it, kind of behind the scenes, and I think it's just interesting. Anytime you see lists, I think they're really, really interesting. So here's the top 10 players according to this list. Number 10 is LeBron James. Number 9 is Paul George. See, now I think that's interesting because I think Paul George is a top 10 player, but he goes up there and it's pretty eye-opening to me. Kyle Lowry is 8. Channing Frye is 7. Okay, you can stop and say, well, that's ridiculous. Channing Frye is not the 7th best player in the NBA, but on some metric somewhere, which is valid, I mean, you'll see the right names are in this group. Channing Frye is now in a group of those metrics and those names, okay, well, Phoenix lost him in the offseason. That's a big deal. And, when I do this 10, the right names are in here. You'll see. It gives you an idea of, okay, well, Channing Frye really had an impact on games. There's a level here where we get overwhelmed sometimes by individual skill and this and that. You know what it really comes down to? Impact on games. How do you impact a game? Well, Channing Frye has huge gravity. He brings players to him. He makes threes. He evidently doesn't get exposed too bad defensively. And the fact is none of these guys are able to there aren't so many post-up players that exploit these undersized power forwards that often. So if he rebounds half decently, it gets done. I mean, I just think it's all right. So take it. Okay, I agree with you. Channing Frye's not one of the top 10 players in the league, but maybe he is in the sense of impact on games. So LeBron 10, Paul George 9, Kyle Lowry 8, Channing Frye 7, Steph Curry 6, Kevin Love 5. Worth remembering Kevin Love here a little bit because of the fact that when you hear who the worst players in the league are. Damian Lillard 4. How about that? Jose Calderon 3. Dallas loses him in the offseason. Kevin Durant 2 and Dirk Nowitzki, the number 1 impacted player in the NBA. And I actually think that's true. I think Rick Carlisle and Durant and Nowitzki are tied. I think Carlisle uses Nowitzki in a manner that exploits more people than just players and builds off of it, and whether it's running Monte off a pick and roll or whatever it might be, better than just about any coach does with an individual player in the NBA. So I don't know. It's just a list. Obviously, we think LeBron's better than 10, but Paul George 9, Lowry 8, Channing Frye 7. Let's watch it. I think Phoenix can have a tough year this year. Steph Curry 6, Love 5, Damian Lillard 4, Jose Calderon 3, Durant 2, and Nowitzki 1. Okay? 10 worst players in the NBA. Some of these are interesting because I have quoted one of them as a good free agent signing. Another team is banking on another one as a good free agent signing. And another one in here I think has huge impact on another impact, and then free agent signing, I'll explain. And then number 3 is impact on Kevin Love. That was number 4. Okay. 10th worst player in the NBA. I got to mute somebody. Hi, Josh. If you could hit mute, that would be great, but I just did it to you, I think, instead. Is it Josh or Joseph? I can't actually see what it is. Joseph, welcome. All right, Cody Zeller, who is the 10th best player in the NBA, first-round draft pick. A lot of people really high on him for Charlotte. Gerald Henderson at number 9 is the 9th worst player in the NBA. That's important because that's the player Lance Stevenson is replacing. So if you want, we can get into how Lance Stevenson, how Lance Stevenson is as a player and what's wrong with him. But if he's replacing the 9th worst player in the NBA at that position, then Charlotte's going to be a good deal better. Andre Miller, 8th worst. Al-Farouq Aminu, 7th worst. I love Al-Farouq. I totally thought he'd be a good signing. Absolutely a fan. PJ Tucker, 6th worst. That's interesting because I think he has a role and you kind of believe he's doing something for us. Beno Udrich, 5th worst. Sean Livingston, the 4th worst player in the NBA last year, according to this rating system. Impact on games, helping his team win or lose. Pretty eye-opening. Well, because that impacts a bunch of things. Warriors are relying heavily on him. Makes you wonder why Jason Kidd played him so much. Tayshaun Prince, third worst player in the NBA. I think we knew that. If Memphis could find anyone to play small forward when they were playing Joe Johnson, not Joe Johnson, what's his name? Former Wake Forest kid, came out of Wake Forest, originally drafted by the Bulls. All right, I can't think of his name. Not in season mode. At small forward, instead of Tayshaun Prince, you knew something was up. He just re-signed with Toronto, whoever that guy is. So Vince Carter instead of Tayshaun Prince could be a real upgrade for Memphis. You got to remember sometimes it's not just the player, it's who they're replacing. I think that's a really big deal for you when you analyze these things. Luke Ridnour, second worst player, and the worst player in the NBA according to this rating system. And I'm not trying to steal someone else's stuff. I just don't think this person really wants it all the way out there. And at some point it'll get published and probably be. I don't want to take is Ricky Rubio. Ricky Rubio comes out as the worst player in the NBA. It's pretty interesting. Here's where I think this is interesting on numerous levels on the Ricky Rubio thing. One, because of the Kevin Love situation where the banging on Kevin Love is based on the fact that Kevin Love can't win, and if Ricky Rubio really is the worst player in the NBA, or at least his impact on games is one of the worst in the NBA, okay, you can be listening to this right now and go, well, Ricky Rubio's not the okay, but in a rating, he's got to be somewhere in the ballpark, right? Because every other name made sense there. It's not like he's good, right? His hype. If we get rid of the Ricky Rubio hype and all the things about the Ricky Rubio hype, about the young Spaniard and the fact that Bill Simmons was in love with him, and suddenly that made everybody think he was going to be the greatest player ever, and somehow David Kahn decided not to pay Kevin Love because he wanted to have the 5-year thing for Ricky Rubio. Talk about colossal, biggest mistakes in the history of the NBA. Well, then you know what we're talking about? We're talking about a guy who's been in the league for 3 years, played a lot, shoots 37% from the field, 32% from three. I mean, it's great. He gets 4 rebounds and 8 assists a game and 2 steals. He's a good defender. But, I mean, those are horrific numbers. Well, it has a huge impact on Kevin Love. The other one I would point out that I think it has a big impact on is our worst case. That's Dante Exum's worst case scenario right there. Dante Exum and Ricky Rubio have a lot of similarities. James Johnson, by the way, was the player I couldn't remember. Thank you very much to Josh McClain. Ricky. I'm not saying that Dante Exum is going to be Ricky Rubio, but Dante Exum has a lot of similarities to Ricky Rubio. International star, lots of things, court vision, can't shoot, we'll figure it out. Will he figure it out? All right, so anyway, I thought that was interesting. I'll go to David Smith's question because it's the next thing that was on my notes. Thoughts of Toure Murray. Mark Stein mentioned yesterday, didn't play much, but perhaps the Jazz like what they've seen scouting him over the years. So I don't know anything specific on whether Toure Murray has been signed. He reported a 2-year, $2 million deal. Let's go through some basics about the names, a few things about what's about to happen, what we're about to see that are important. Thank you for the question, David. I might have forgotten today. I kind of am throwing this together because I've been working on another project all morning. Which was to apply to go to classes to get more education. Okay, come on. Somebody live was supposed to laugh at that. There's like 2 live faces, and I needed someone to at least laugh at that joke. There's 2 things I think are important on the name on Toure Murray or whoever it's going to be on the next set of names we're going to hear. There's no veterans coming. Like all the talk about the veteran point guard, the veteran wing, I don't see it coming, guys. I've been telling you this for about a month. I don't think the veterans are coming. I really don't. I don't think there's a veteran point guard. I think your backup point guard could be a Toure Murray. It could be an Ian Clark. It could be somebody else we're going to see coming in. Like your third point guard could be the way we're playing. It may not have to be a pure point. It may just have to be a ball handler who can get us into things. The second thing. On all these 2-year, $2 million, all of it you got to back up a little bit and find out what the real contract is. Now, how we're going to do that, I don't know. But you're going to hear players signed. The in thing, by the way, is led by our general manager. People have suddenly followed suit. Is to go grab these guys where you have the rights to them for multiple years. So for Felix, we have the rights to him for 2 more years. But he's non-guaranteed after this next year, so we can trade him, frankly, and it fills caps. The way we traded for him. Maybe you don't get big pieces out of it. You can you can keep them, you have the rights to them, or you can release them, or you can use their salary slot. To some extent, it almost is advantageous to you to not overpay their non-guarantee a little bit, right? So might as well give Torrey Murray a million in the second year, because if that is what the deal is, because if it's non-guaranteed, then you can use that million to go make a deal, right? So realize that the Jazz also are in a financial situation where I think the Jazz are going to be willing to bury some money. So in other words, hey, if Ian Clark is guaranteed a portion of his deal or all of his deal, though I think he probably will make the roster at this point and maybe play that role I just talked about. But if you're going to hear some other names coming in, another point guard probably, another scorer probably, another big guy who can bounce around a little bit probably, some of those kind of guys, and you're going to hear they're signed. Their training camp invites, they might actually have a small guarantee. If it means you give them a small guarantee to get them to come to your camp so you get a look at them, that's probably worth it, particularly since we're under the cap. And maybe you pay $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 of a guarantee to see Torrey Murray in training camp for a little while, or maybe to see him up to January 1 and then decide, you know what, we don't want him. Or you keep him the whole way through because you've got a non-guarantee on the backside, which means you still hold the rights to him and you can use him. So let's, I saw this news came out. I'm not very overwhelmed by this. Okay, well, you shouldn't be. None of these guys. We're just looking for another piece. We're looking for, if you're going to use the Spurs parlance, we're looking for a Patty Murray. We're looking for a Patty Mills. Excuse me. We're looking for a Patty Mills. We're looking for a Gary Neal. We're looking for just some little piece like that in the process, and that's what you're trying to find along the way. Let's go to the next question. And I know nothing about Torrey Murray's game. He, I think, had like 14 points in the final game of the year against Toronto last year for New York. I have a general rule that any player that's ever out of New York is never as good as New York makes them to sound. So we'll hope he breaks the rule. But Amon Shumpert's not that good. Wilson Chandler broke my rule. But generally, the New York media, like the minute you put on a Knick uniform, you become great, like just by definition. Now, somehow they only win 35 games a year despite all that greatness. I wonder if we could trade Torrey Murray for Kevin Love, right? Like, no, actually, you probably can't. But, like Amon Shumpert for Russell Westbrook, you think they do it? Come on. There's no more delusional fan base than the Knicks. All right, last summer from Wade Godfrey. Last summer we heard a lot about Karl Malone coaching Derek and Ennis, but haven't heard much this year. Did this not work out, or are we just not hearing anything? Might be self-explanatory. I don't know anything. It's a good question. But I think it was a great job by the organization, and Ty was incredible in giving Mailman the freedom to find out whether Mailman really liked it or not. He's got so many other things going on. Does he really want to do it? What level did he want to do it? How engaged is he? Did it spark a fire? Did it? Is it actually really boring that you go do this and other people get the credit? Will the players be receptive to him? You got to know how to coach. Just because you play doesn't mean you know how to coach. In fact, it's the last thing that I think qualifies you to know how to coach. I think maybe it's self-explanatory that we haven't heard about it. It's also, though, as much as Quinn's a new regime, he and Jerry are very tight and have embraced and have that connection. So I'm not sure I have an answer for you other than it might be self-explanatory. All right, from Al Quarles, Torrey Murray is a good pickup as a piece. As a Nets fan, I wanted them to pick him up. He's definitely a person who was given the opportunity to be a solid point guard. I'm not sure he's, from what I've heard, I'm not sure he's a solid point guard. He's a guard. He's a guard. He's big. He's strong. He's athletic. He's physical. He can kind of do some things. He played at Mississippi State, I believe, for 4 years. He averaged like 10, 11 points a game. He kind of strikes me as, this is what I know about him and what I've read about him and talked to some people. He strikes me as one of those players who might actually be better in a pro game than a collegiate game. And what I mean by that is sometimes these guys who are able to kind of, if in fact we've come to deal with him, excuse me, he didn't play. He didn't play at Mississippi. He played at Wichita State. Sorry, I said Mississippi State. He played at Wichita State. And he's 6'5", 195, and he just strikes me as one of those guys who is the collegiate athlete in a game that doesn't really promote athletes. So he's a 10.5 rebound, 3 assist guy on the collegiate level, and maybe, just maybe, he gets into a pro game, and that versatility can make him be a useful player, not a star, not a starter, just a useful player. But really, again, let's talk about what the Jazz are right now. The Jazz are all about development. Every single one of their coaches has been a head coach in some capacity. Every single one of their coaches has worked in the D League or something similar based on development. So they're going to scout players, look at them, and say, can we develop him? Is that a guy right now who's a 12th guy, and if we develop these 2 or 3 skills on him, we can make him an 8th guy? Well, maybe. And you know what? You only got to hit on about 1 out of 5 of those guys. All right, that wraps me up for the day. Hope you have a good one. I'm going to go back to school. Talk to you later.